to the second episode of the Unlocking Service Growth program, featuring Greg, Hayne, and myself, and our special guest, which we'll introduce momentarily. This episode is sponsored by our first sponsor, Roofing Technology Think Tank. We call it RT3 for short. If you're not familiar with RT3 yet, you need to get familiar right now. RT3 is a consortium of thought leaders, manufacturers, tech providers, consultants, roofing contractors who are really bringing innovative thoughts of technology into the roofing industry. Many of them are already early adopters. And the whole mission for RT3 is to elevate the roofing industry with the adoption of technology. Why should you join? Well, we do live meetups, virtual meetups. We also have the most incredible networking in the industry. If you are interested in learning from innovative contractors and innovative thought leaders, it is a $250 investment that you will pay back in one conversation. All right, so you'll receive the money back, the ROI, so quickly. It's only $250 to be a community member. So I'm going to place the RT3 registration to join RT3 in the chat right now. It's for everyone to register. It's $250, okay, for the company. All you got to do is register to join, and you're going to be in with the RT3 group. It is a no-brainer. I'm on the board. Greg's a member. Rackley, who was on our first episode, is a member. I'm telling you, there's probably not a better group of contractors in the industry that gather to progress the industry like RT3. So if you're not a member yet, join. It's a no-brainer. Don't even bat an eye and be a part of something special, okay? So with that being said, welcome everyone. We're gonna get started right now. Greg, thank you for being my co-host and partner with this program. Love what you do. If you guys are not familiar with Greg Hayne, you're going to be, and you need to be working with him if you wanna grow service. But Greg, why don't you go ahead and introduce our special guest today on episode 2.
I like your new sign. I'm feeling very inadequate with all this stuff behind me right now. So I met Mark Warren probably 6-7 years ago. I believe it was at a Best of Success. We had a conversation, and he and I kind of stayed connected off and on over the next few years. And Mark is an interesting guy. What makes Mark interesting is, first and foremost, that he would go to these trade shows and he would listen to this guy talk about service, and he would take these ideas back and apply them without getting any help from anybody else, and he made it work. And so I thought that was very interesting. The other thing that I think that's interesting is I wanted Mark to be our second guest because we had Rackley the last time, who is a contractor with a national reputation for great service. And I do not want any of you listening to this to think that you have to be a big contractor to have a great service department. All of these contractors that have great service departments running around with 25 trucks, they started with service. And that's what propelled them to become these great companies. So Mark, unfortunately, he's no longer small. He's got 5 trucks now. But when I talked with him just a year or two ago, it was 3. He has done incredibly well. And so we wanted to invite him in to share his story with us. And we're going to jump into that in a second, but we're also going to have time for questions. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask Mark, type him into the chat box. And after we've done some interview stuff, we'll do some question and answer stuff. So and Mark is a friend, by the way. Mark, thanks for being here. I know where you're sitting. I've been in that room with you. Thanks for being here. Would you kind of lay out for us briefly how you went from, I'm a commercial roofing contractor and I do service because I have to service drives my whole business? And what was that? Tell us about that journey.
So 1993, I switched from being a general contractor into just roofing only, and residential re-roofs. That's how we started. I'd say we worked our way into a commercial after 3 or 4 years, and it was, that's where we wanted to be. the commercial client and the commercial, it was challenging for us and we loved it. By 2002, we were like a 50-50 residential and commercial roofing company. So we kept pushing and pushing on the commercial. We didn't know like what the magic bullet was at that point. But we pushed all the way through the Great Recession. And so 2011 kind of like picked up our heads and went, okay, what the hell are we doing here? So I knew I needed to get the company organized, and I was vetting a software company, and they asked me. They said, "Hey, call this guy up in Minneapolis and go out and see if you can get on, look at his operation and see how he deploys the software." So that was Kevin Krychek at Mint Roofing, and he graciously brought me out for 2 days, and that was the very first time that I saw a real bona fide service department, and I was completely blown away. The professionalism, the way they ran it, I went, geez, okay, I get it now. This is the whole other part of the business that at that point I really didn't know existed. So maybe a month or two after, I came back and I told my team that I was building out the leadership team at that time, and I told them, I go, I have a great idea, and they went, great. Um, so month or two later, I saw a Best of Success advertisement in Roofing Contractor magazine, and one of the speakers was going to do a talk on how to sell preventative maintenance. And that was in 2012. So that's, we've known each other for 7 years now. So I bought my ticket to Denver, sat down, listened to Greg's presentation. And by the way, it was exactly what I needed at that exact moment in time. You laid out price per truck, hourly rate structures, revenue expectations per truck, good, great, and stellar. And so gave us, like, everyone in the audience, like some great goals. Anyway, after the talk, I stalked you, found you, and said, all right, I'm in, let's do this. And you said, okay, great. How many service trucks do you have? And I said, I don't have any. And you went, okay, hold on. This is what you need to do. You need to start with X, Y, and Z. So I went back to my office, brought everyone in and said, this is what we're going to do. X, Y, and Z. You do X, you do Y, I'll do Z. And we started putting this thing together. And for the next 4 years, I truly stalked you. If you were speaking anywhere, I would buy a plane ticket and I would go. And it was great because when I was, after the talk, I'd learn a little something new. And you would always go, okay, Mark, where are you at now? And I would tell you, and you'd go, okay, well, you should think about this, or you should maybe deploy that, or you should do this. And I would write it all down, and I would go back, and again, we would just put it in practice. Not everything worked perfect, but it gave us a start and gave us, like, we got to venture into it. Anyway, so from that, here's the cool thing. From that first meeting, how to sell preventative maintenance, we now have 4.7 million square feet in preventative maintenance. And that is twice a year, every year. And that little number just continues to grow over time. So that was a really good investment, that very first plane ticket to Denver. And now our service department, it feeds our re-roofing operation. And
Explain that. Elaborate.
so on that part of it, we undervalued the fact that we were going to pick up the re-roofs later on. That was not our focus. We just wanted to be really great at the service side of it. If we didn't get the re-roofs, whatever. We didn't, we would just try and shoot back for the service on the new roof, because some owners want the cheapest bid. So, but we just started figuring out that over time, 57% last year, 57% of our re-roofs were done for people in our preventative maintenance program. So it does feeds the system. 30% of our re-roofs beyond that are from inside clients. So, but they are not in that elite preventative maintenance program.
So
So
90% of your re-roofs come from service.
correct. And 10% are new people that we want to work with, that we're targeting as clients. So we don't think of re-roofs as our focus on our sales. Our most important sale for our company is our most important sale is the repair work that we go out and do, and then we convert that repair work into preventative maintenance. And then once we make a preventative maintenance sale, you know, we have our claws in them, and they don't want to leave. So, you
Mark,
know,
can you just share back in 2013 when you really had that one truck kind of cooking and where you are today? Just kind of go year over year. It would be great for our audience to hear your growth,
With revenue.
revenue.
yeah. So I wrote it all down because I thought maybe somebody might ask me this. So one van in 2013, the gross was 237,000, which put us in Greg's original framework. That put us just below good. So, you know, it was our first year. Um, the 2014, we really had 1.5 vans operating, and we got up to 357. 2015, we got some good traction. 2 vans on the road, 760,000 in revenue. 2016, we moved it to 3 vans, 1.1 million. So as we got better, you know, we could see that revenue per van changing. 2018, 1.9 million on 4 vans. In 2019, we ended up at 2.1 million with 5 vans. So that's, you know, and this year we're scratching at that. It's been a weird year, but we'll probably come in about what we did last year, maybe a little bit better. And we are going to add a van next year. At least that's our plan right now, is to add 1 more van, and we have the personnel about trained up for that.
Just one quick question, Greg, and I want to hand it to you. I notice a lot of contractors feel that their margins need to be at a certain number to compete in their market. And so they're at 40%. Some will get 50, and some are at the 70 spectrum. And I think that I noticed that there's like a belief that really allows them to do that, or limits them to stay lower. I'm hearing, and I know your margins are, I'd love for you to share that and why you're able to hold those, as I notice you've made your focus on being better at service, right? And as you get better at it, you can sell the value. So just share those numbers, because I think it's really inspiring for people who commit to it to know what their margins could be by leadership or by example.
So our every week we measure our performance, and our goal is 63% gross margin on the entire service department as an aggregate. So those are the numbers that we shoot for. When we first started, no, we weren't getting those numbers. We undervalued what we brought to the table. But the reality is, it is such a complicated little business that you deserve that, for all the moving parts, from the first time you take the call until you send that invoice out. It has to be perfect. Otherwise, it didn't work. If you stumble, it sucks. It's not worth doing. So we feel like it's worth it for those margins. We do have clients once in a while that just say no, and we say, okay, you're just not the right client for us. And we've had clients leave, and we've had them circle back. So our system is very, very tight. We're super transparent. We give them the information. We take a property manager's job, we take part of his job off his plate. And like what we give him, he feeds straight to the owner. And with very little, he just has to glance at it and say, this is what happened, or this is what needs to happen. So it's like, they don't want to leave.
So you just said you've said a lot of things there, a lot of things that we can unpack. But the last thing you said was they don't want to leave. And that's the goal. Because your department is like every other department, it's made up of people, things don't always work perfectly. So one of the beauties of having you as a guest is that you have been in the middle of all of this. So one of my messages to everybody is the owner of the company's got to be involved. If the owner's not involved, it doesn't happen. If the owner's involved, it does. And that's the case with all the great service companies. The owners are involved, and you are. But talk about some of the stuff that you did that was kind of dumb, that didn't work very well. What kind of mistakes did you make philosophically in how you approach things, so that other people sitting there can hear what not to do?
So I look back on the first winter, and in California, it starts raining generally. It starts raining in November, and it rains until March or April, and that's your leak season. After that, there's no you're not chasing leaks. So that's a specific season for us. Oh, our first league season, we had already picked up a couple of property managers, only a couple, but we told everybody that we could, we'll fix your leaks. So, the first winter we did it on a whiteboard. We wrote down the leaks. We hadn't deployed our software yet. We didn't have the pictures, we didn't have the arrows. We spent more time sorting out what the hell we did. The guys would come back in at the end of the day and then leave the next morning, and the client would call and go, did you fix my leak? And we'd say, I don't know, but we'll get back to you. So it was disorganization, but there was three of us there, trying to put the whole thing together. And we ended up paper dispatches, and we had one of these rotating brochure racks, for at different points of the process. And we finally settled on a decent software program to help us smooth out those wrinkles. But one of the hardest parts was getting the technicians to understand that we're gathering information. We're not just fixing something. We're documenting it, and we have to send that up. In order for us to get paid, we got to send along what we did. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's take good pictures. That was
So I'm hearing about the paper mess, and then I'm hearing you mention technology. So what technology are you utilizing, and what kind of a difference did that make for you?
So I laid out the vision for the service department, and I hired a service manager to help us get there. But he didn't know anything about roofing. But he's a go-getter. He's the guy you would.
Wait a minute. You hired somebody to run a service department that didn't know anything about roofing. That's very interesting. How did that work?
And he would tell you, I knew about roofing, but so I said, this is what you have to get. This is the revenue projection per van. This is how many vans we have. This is your goal. This is your job, is to get this. And he took that to heart. So anyway, I set some goals for him, and I said, whatever it takes, you just come and ask me, and we'll make it work. So he came back to me and said, we have to buy a whole new software system. This is the one. I've done all the research. This is the one we have to buy. And I went, oh, here we go again. Trying and learning, trying to learn a new software system. I mean, it's such a painful thing, but we did. We went to FCS, and everyone in the company got on board, which was, it can be very painful, but everyone jumped in, and we became what we call deep users. So we were probably a big, huge pain in the ass to. Sorry about that. I
Jim's nodding his
literally.
head right now.
Yeah, this is not helping. But anyway, we were on them every day. We were on the phone with FCS. What about this? What about this? What about this? Because we said, look, you guys design the software. We're gonna design our system around your software. We're not gonna try and tweak it. Well, that didn't work either,
So
because
you mean that you bought software and you weren't able just to hand it to the guys and say here, and they go, okay, and it worked perfectly right out. I mean, they had to be trained, and you had to get support, and that's okay.
yeah, and that was
Interesting. Okay.
and I would say that dovetailing our systems that we had to use into the systems designed into the software, that's the tricky part. And that's like, I gave one guy, or the service manager, I said, okay, you're buying the software, you're the guy that's going to have to like make it work. And he did. He jumped in full, all the way. And he would train the guys, and we still have once a week meeting every Monday morning, and those meetings are there to tweak the system just a little bit, just to say, okay, your pictures, you guys are dropping off on your pictures, we're not seeing your arrows, and we now grade every dispatch that gets done gets graded.
It gets graded. What does this mean?
Well, that means that people have to hear it. If they didn't do it right, or they didn't do like 100%, and so now we started putting the grades on the wall so that everybody can see everybody else's grades. And that was a trick that I learned from K-Post. And it's amazing how people pay attention to what everybody else is doing and how they're doing it. So
I am interrupting you, but I am trying to highlight some things as they just don't slide by.
okay.
So you brought in the technology that made it better, and all of your technicians instantly said, oh yes, this is wonderful, I love using iPads, right? Is that how that worked?
Well, so we bought iPads, and then they all went, these don't work. Can't carry them around on the roof. Want to do it on a phone. So then we invested in better phones with better connection. But no, Greg, it was like we had to wrestle with the guys about everything. And they're technicians, they're roofers. This is bullshit, right? But it's not, and
So what do you think separates you from the contractor? Because everybody goes through this. Everything you're saying, everybody that's listening here goes, yeah. They all get this, all right? So what is the key piece, or what are the key pieces that have allowed you to achieve this kind of success?
so I would go right back to our hiring practices.
Mhm.
First of all, we don't hire people because they're roofers. We hire people because they're good mechanics, or they're good with their hands, and they can think on their feet. So when we hire, we tell them, look, we're not like all the other guys. And what you're doing here, if you don't know roofing, we will train you. We will train you to be roofers. And we show them the path through the company. And the path is, whatever your skill set is, we can work you up, and you can get to this point, and you can earn this much money, but it's up to you to want to get there. And what's that?
I said, I love that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's meritocracy. It shows vision, leadership, and then they know, what can I do in my power to control my destiny with this company, right? And that's leadership and structure that you're casting for them. And I highly encourage that. In fact, it's required if you want to grow and get people excited about your vision, right?
Right. So the other, one of the other things that we say to them is, look, we want the top 10% of the workforce working here. We want the other 90% of the workforce working for our competitors.
Mm.
Once we establish that, then things become a lot easier because they're on the team. We're all trying to row in the same direction, and they understand that the company is behind them. We will train them. We will get them to that. They want to make $30 an hour. We'll get them to $30 an hour, and they don't have skills in our industry. We can get them there, and we do we do our 90-day quarterly conversations with them. We course correct them as soon as whenever we can. We praise them when they do things right, so that they keep doing it right.
Mm.
And we're good to our people, and so I feel like we have good people.
Okay, I'm going to now test you
No, boy.
in front
I
of
have a question after that when you're
Okay.
done testing.
So we've got a question here that says, what is the mindset that you must adopt for this to work? And the test is, do you know what the right answer is? Which is mine, but what's yours? What's the mindset that you must adopt?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty broad question, or at least I'm taking it in a broad sense.
Share your core values. I think that's probably a big part, right? I mean,
Well, our core values are transparency, teamwork, dependability, innovation, and passion. Um, So that's on our wall when you walk in the door, and that's what everybody sees. And all the new hires that come in, or they're coming in to interview, they see that. And when they're sitting in my office, I go, right there. That's how we live. That's how we make our decisions. If there's something that's squishy and we try and wonder, well, what should we do here? We just look at that and we say, okay, if we're being honest and transparent with ourselves, does that client deserve a credit right now? And did we not perform? Did we not do what we say we were going to do? And then we act accordingly. And I think that buys us a lot of cred amongst all the professionals that we work with. So that's a big one.
That's a really good answer.
awesome. So you've shared some incredible things. I love some of the things that you're sharing. Very strong leadership, and that's credit to you and your commitment. I feel passion a lot from you, and I love that. I think it's contagious. I could see your people being excited to work for you. So thanks for sharing all that.
Thank you.
If you were to do this all over again and you started Mark's service company, not Warren, and you rebranded, okay?
Right.
I think I'm a firm believer that if somebody's built it once, they can build it again in record speed, much faster than they did the second time to get to this point. You shared a lot of information. What would you say that you haven't shared yet that you would do if you were to start Mark's service group instead of Warren's from scratch, that would propel you forward into the $2 million range that's taken you 7 years to get to, and you could probably get there in 3? Like what would be something you haven't shared yet that would be a hack based on your experience that would help you get there?
I think the first thing that, and we just alluded to it, is I would start with the right people. We hired in the beginning, and by the way, we built this thing through that really tough labor shortage. And so that may be one reason why it was difficult. But when I would start with, 2 good technicians that buy into the vision. And I would be very, very clear about the vision. This is what we're building. And I would set milestones. This is where we're going to be, here, here, and here. And I would get every single person on the team to understanding that. And I would repeat it to them weekly forever, because when they all get it and they all start to understand it, even the tech 2 that we hire, right, that doesn't know anything, that guy, when it assimilates, it permeates him, and pretty soon he's like, well, here, let me run the phone. And that's a big thing amongst our guys, is running the phone. That's control. So I would start with those guys there. I'd start out hardware wise the same way I did. I just buy an old plumber van that I can put a bunch of crap into, and and fix it up as I go. But I would start with that one piece of hardware. I would go directly to all the top property managers, and I would lay out my vision for them. So one of the things that we did was we whispered to a property manager who had about 300,000 square feet of buildings. I said, look, I want to build out service department. We're going to do preventative maintenance. He didn't know what that was. So I said, you're my guinea pig. It's going to cost you very little, but you're going to be my sounding board. And so we did that. And we gave him a great deal, a long time to work our way out of. But but the information was invaluable. And he would give us great feedback, like, do not send me that. That doesn't help me at all. And then I'd say, okay, well, what would help you? And then he would say, I got to send this to an owner and I need this, this, and this. So we tailored the system, and then, we laid everything out by year. This is what we're going to do in your buildings. And then he said, well, why can't you do it all this year? And we thought, yeah, we can. And then 2 years later or a year later, he said, why can't we spread it out? So they didn't even know what they wanted. But eventually, we figured it out for him.
That is beautiful, both transparent and innovative, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah, right.
because I think that a lot of roofers, they want to pretend like they've been there a million times, yes. and they don't. And so what happens is they bought into what you're trying to do here, because you just keep telling your people that. And I think that's really, really great. And what a wonderful best practice there for somebody trying to get started.
Mark, you have an innovative approach to hiring in terms of when you go out in the market to seek out candidates who you have told me you look for. Would you mind sharing that with the group?
Well, I mean, I go through my core values, and during the interview process, I lay out the vision for the company.
So how do you get that guy in front of you? What do you advertise for? Do you advertise for roof techs?
No, we don't. We advertise in facility maintenance. We go into facility maintenance, so people that are interested in actually buildings, or in maintaining buildings. So that's where we get most of our people. And we do advertise a little bit in the roofing sections, and it's Craigslist. And those people that come in, we don't tell them they're going to be a roofer. We tell them that they're going to be a facility maintenance guy, and they're going to be going out and maintaining facilities, roof centric or siding centric or envelope centric. And that's where, and they're in. They're like, okay. Once I lay out the vision, you can kind of tell if somebody capitulates just a little bit, then it's done. It's over. It's the guys that lean into it and go, okay, and they ask a question, and they ask about this, or they start asking questions, not necessarily about pay or benefits, but they ask questions about what they're going to be doing all day. And I got Kathy trained up on. She does a great 360 on because we have seasons. We have our leak season, we have our temp to perm season, we have our repair season, our big repair season, and then we have our getting ready for winter season, and then we go back into leaks. So she'll lay out for our people exactly what their day is going to look like in the winter, in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall, and how diverse it is, and how you're moving around all the time. So that's usually, and then once people buy into that, then we can go into rate structures and benefits and all that.
We've got some great questions coming in. You think maybe we should start asking some questions, Ryan? Answering some?
Yes. The first one I want to ask, and then Greg, can you be prepared to ask the next ones?
Well, I'll be glad to ask to pick some of these. Go ahead.
Mark, what is your office structure, meaning coordinator, sales, estimator, manager? Just kind of lay it out at the 2 million mark, kind of where you are today with your team.
So, okay, and the business is completely separate. We run a separate financial class for each side of the business. So on the service side of the business, we have a dispatcher, we have what's called an account manager who runs a lot of the paperwork, does small estimates, and some small inspections. And then I have my guy Dave, who does all the large inspections, the large estimates, he onboards new clients, and that's kind of it. And then we have 10 technicians.
So one of the questions that's come in is, I'm seeing questions that fall into two categories. One is about culture. One is more about the technical aspect of service. And I'm going to lean toward answering the technical aspects about service more than company culture questions. But so how long did it take you to successfully implement FCS so that you're to the point where it's like, from where you started to like, okay, we've got this. We know what we're doing. It's working.
So, you can really measure it after 1 year. And that's like, again, we have these cycles that we go through. So each time we got into a new cycle, we had to like figure out like, oh, how are we going to do our convert our temporary repairs into permanent repairs, the ones that we did in the middle of the winter. So that process was something we had to work through. And then when we got into our large repairs, we had to work through how do we handle that? What's the workflow there? And then when we got into our leak season, what's the workflow there? Because that's completely different than the other two. So I think after 1 year, we looked back and went, oh, okay, how did we do? And then so when we started back into that second cycle on year 2 on each thing, that's when we and actually, we preemptively, like 2 months before our cycle change, we would start figuring out what those changes were going to be. Okay, this is how we did last year. This is where we fell flat. This is where we need to improve. And we would go ahead and start building out those changes about 2 months in advance. And then we would actually start making the techs start to adopt those changes in advance so that when it started raining, we weren't scrambling around trying to figure out what the hell we're doing, what changes are we making. We had planned them out, and by the time it started raining, they go, oh yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing this now. And it worked well. So,
That's a great answer. What is your sales pitch to property managers about preventive maintenance, and how do you explain a maintenance contract to build value is the question.
Oh God. Okay. The big one. So when we approach a property manager, first of all, it's generally a phone call. Hey, we need a new roof. Okay. That's usually the phone call we get. And we don't go out and tell people they need a new roof when they don't need a new roof. We try and find out what their goal or what the owner's goal is with the building. Are they playing Monopoly? Are they trading up in a couple of years? What is it that they want out of their building? And then that's when we can start having different conversations with them in regards to, okay, yes, what's your leak tolerance? My leak tolerance is 0. Fine, we'll put a new roof on. But if your leak tolerance is less than 0, we can talk about other things. So what we do is we try and build, we give them budgets for re-roofs. So we run on a 4-year cycle. So they get a re-roof budget that they know that they need to start saving for, and we'll give them a horizon for that. Say that's 8 to 10 years down the road. You'll need to pack away, $200,000 for this roof. In the meantime, year 1, These are the things we want to get the roof to what we call maintainable condition. So if we can get your roof to maintainable condition, let's say that costs you 20 grand. And now you're at maintainable condition. Now we come in each year, we do our preventative maintenance, and we're going to work on this item, and this item, which over the next 4 years are going to fail. And we build that into the matrix. And then they once they get their overall budget, because for them, they that's all they do is work on budgets. But when they can go to the owner, or the owner can say, great, I know that I don't know, there's the question mark of how much am I going to spend on my roof this winter is kind of smooths that out. I'm going to spend $9,000 on the first year here. I'm going to spend $3,000 this next year, and I'm going to spend 2,500 the year after, and then I'm dropping down to 800 a year for 2 trips for them to do their magic. Then they're on coasting, and then we update those about every 4 years. So usually when I get that in front of them, and my guy Dave, he's very, very good at this. When he gets in front of somebody, he's very good at laying it out, and they go, makes sense.
Time to clone Dave. Time to clone Dave.
Got to
Yeah.
clone Dave.
So what about Dave makes Dave so special?
Good question. I taught him everything he knows. Dave's a guy that when you lay out the plan and you say, this is where we got to go, he puts his head down and he goes there. He makes it work. When he gets in front of owners, he's just very direct. There's no tiptoeing around things with Dave. He's very direct, and when he speaks, you believe him, because what he's
There you
speaking.
go. Right there. Because I've met Dave, and Dave is very clear. He's very unambiguous. He inspires confidence in
Yeah,
the customer. He's
yeah.
very good at that. So I have a number of other questions here, and
Can we get these two punchy ones real fast? So before
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
What were your margins when you started 2013 and 14? Because somebody asked, because they're just getting started. And then the same person who asked that question asked, what phones worked best for you using FCS?
So margins, hey, we started out the gate, scraping in at 35, 40%, and then we just figured out as we improved, the margins just improved with us. And by the way, as an owner and the guy that was running the company up until that point in time, I bring a lot of baggage, and don't discount that. The baggage that I brought in was I undervalued what we did, because I said it's too much, and like, I want people to trust us, and these guys came back to me and said, wait a minute, you said we should be making these margins, and you said that these are the goals we need to hit, and in order for us to get there, we have to charge this. And then I stopped talking about it. Would just walk out. Okay, you guys, you figured out what we need to charge it. And and every once in a while they'll come back to me and go, hey, guess what, we have to have that conversation again, we need to raise our prices. And I go, yeah, okay, what are you thinking? And then I let that soak, and then I let them run with it, because they understand. And every week we measure, and the margins are what they're supposed to be. So
I heard your teamwork core value and your innovative one, because you have to be innovative to change your mindset, and then the teamwork required you to rely on your team to give you that. So you're living out your core values. Really good. Phones on FCS.
Phones, we went what do we got? Samsung. We don't do the Apple thing, so they're just the regular Samsung phones. Samsung 3s, I think, is what we buy for the field. They're cheap enough where I don't think we pay for insurance on those anymore. that we figured out that, you know, if they last 2 years and then they get dropped in a bucket of coating, you know, we can pick up another one cheap enough, um, and those seem to work. And we tend to use the best wireless carrier in the area, you know, because the signal on the site is pretty important. And that is one thing that can gum up the system, is if you don't have a signal from the site, you can do it, but you gotta reboot it later and um, uh, upload pictures, and it's just more work. So um,
Another punchy thing or two is there's a note from Ross Friedman saying FCS is happy to review your best practices regarding field device choices. And the other question that I had that's kind of punchy is, do you have a minimum service fee?
yes, we do have a minimum service fee, 520 or something. You know, it's just over 500, and that includes a two-man crew for 2.5 2 hours. That's portal to portal, and that's our minimum to show up on commercial.
So Ryan, did you have another question that you were dying to ask, or am I okay?
Not dying. I'm still kind of picking through. So if you got one, go ahead.
So I've got a question here. It says, what goes into onboarding your new customers? And although they've asked more things here, just in broad terms, when you bring in a new customer, how do you train that customer?
Well, so this is something that I did at one point in time, but I don't do that anymore. That is 100% my service manager. Um, the onboarding process is when they get our what we call our roof care report. That is a kind of an all-encompassing document that kind of lays out the expectations in writing on exactly what to expect from us. Um, and they're told what tier they're in, so that when they call in for a leak call, you know, because we dispatch via the tiers, and the top tiers always get dispatched first, which is actually a pretty good sales tool, and keeping people up and into that level. But you know, I don't know what to say about like specific onboarding process. It's we once we bring them into our fold and we get one building of theirs, usually then we start working on the second building and the third building and the fourth building. And by that time it's, you know, they want us. They're asking for more and more and more.
Question for you. That was a really good question. What's your process for training a non-roofer to resolve leaks and do major repairs? So let's say you take somebody, give us an example of how you onboarded somebody who's never been on a roof before, but it's handy, right? And utilitarian with their hands and things like that.
So we have two levels of technician. We have a tech one, who is the quote journeyman. He's the guy who knows what he's doing. And then he has a tech two with him. And his job, the tech one's job is to make sure that tech two can become a tech one. So if we have a tech two, we hire somebody new, and they do not have the ability to someday become a tech one, then we let them go. Because we look at it like this: that tech two is going to be following that guy around for a year, and that's how long it takes. Somebody that's good can get it in a year. Somebody that's somebody that's mediocre can get it in a year and a half. It's a lot to learn, and each season, you know, it's one trip around the horn may not be enough for some people, but they're trained as they go. So the tech one, he's talking and training the tech two as he goes. And you know, that was a big issue, because you get the wrong guy and they don't want to train anybody. They just want to be, and then they want to be able to boss that guy around for a while. And we told these guys that the company cannot grow, and we cannot be the biggest, strongest company by doing that. That will only slow us down. What you guys have to do is you have to show them, you have to train them, and when they're ready to be a Tech 1, we send out questionnaires to the Tech 1s. How's this guy doing? Where does he need help? And then we get him that help. And last year we invested in uh not last year, this year during COVID, we spent a lot of time building training tables and a small training facility, so that when people didn't have anything to do, we would send them over there and have them, weld corners and check single ply and remove and replace flashings on our little composition mock-up that we have. So, it's training is kind of our new mantra. Like we're pushing, we're grading and training as much as we can.
Do you think that that'll shorten it from a year to a year and a half, and maybe cut it in half to have that facility, capturing your training on video on a slow day, trying to get some of that knowledge that's not shadowing directly shoulder to shoulder? Is there a way to, have you thought about shortening that through technology, or that facility is a great start? Curious if, because that, I get it. That's it's an overwhelming feeling, man, it's going to take a year to get somebody. And if they don't work out, I like that you're committing to letting them go if they don't see it, that there's a tier 1. So that's a cultural thing, and the vision and the structure of the role. But can you speak to that? Have you got, I like the training facility part, or curious.
Yeah, so the training thing, not original thought of mine, but when I visited K-Post, they were very, they're very into it. And so I said, yeah, that makes complete sense. So from what you're saying, I've been thinking a lot about that in the last couple of months. And that is, how do it's hard to motivate somebody to be a trainer. And like, I thought, do I hire a trainer? That it just seems, it's because I don't know exactly what to train them on. I kind of know, but I don't know the system. So a part of me wants me to get involved in that. It's kind of like when I built the service department. Like, if I wasn't 100% like in it, it wasn't going to happen. So I'm wondering to myself, if I'm not 100% in this training thing, which could be the biggest game changer in our company,
Yeah.
then if I'm not in it 100%, then how can somebody else be in it 100%?
Good.
So maybe I should cut some time out of my day and make that not a rock, but something more like, break it down and make it into 4 or 5 or 6 rocks, that this is going to happen, and it's going to come from the top, so that now as people are entering into it, they understand how critically important it is. Those are my recent thoughts on that.
Real good. Yeah, you're awesome. You got a great foundation, great team. Greg, do you have a question or two as we kind of wrap up the final minutes, because we're definitely up on time?
This is a question that says, you have roles for both service manager and dispatcher. Who dispatches the crews in the morning, and what general hours do the service manager and dispatcher work? What duties does the dispatcher do?
That's like 3 questions.
Yep.
Or more. So we have a dispatcher, Kathy. She's the queen bee, and the guys come in, and we have our FCS system. We have a calendar, electronic calendar on a big screen TV behind her on the wall, so they can kind of see, the guys come in at the end of the day, they can see what tomorrow's going to look like, and they all like that. They like to see who they're working with. We mix up the Tech 2s and the Tech 1s, by the way. She keeps them about a week each, and then she keeps rotating them around. But she controls, and she's here at 6:30 every morning, and she leaves at 3:30 every afternoon. And she has the next day all packed, unpacked and ready to go. The account manager, he rolls in here about 7 o'clock, and he will touch bases with the crews in previous days dispatches and say, hey, by the way, he does the grading of the dispatches. And if there's what we try and do is set all the materials up and be very clear with our instructions on each dispatch, so they can just go grab their stuff, read the notes. If they have questions on the notes, they can go to the account manager and say, what exactly am I, I'm not clear about this or that, and the account manager can usually clear that up for them, and send them on their way. So
Awesome. Well, our time is up. For everyone who would like to see the recording, we will be sending that out. We will also publish an edited version of this on I think Greg and I, both of our YouTube channels. A plug, Greg and I are doing this because we love the industry, but we're also doing this to grow our business. We are both consultants and coaches. Many of you I see already work with us, and for good reason. You're growing. I specialize in helping grow a sales organization with an emphasis leading with service. If you want to go from where you are to an entire new level, it starts with sales, and I can help with that. We have a program and it's working wonderfully. We have a couple of hundred companies now, many of which are experiencing great results if they put the work in. Greg has a couple of different offerings, and I'm gonna just instill some confidence. If you're not in one of Greg's peer groups as an owner, he does have some space. Am I getting a nod or no? Potentially.
Depends on how big you are, but perhaps.
So you can apply for that. And if you're hungry and you want to get a really strong taste of what Greg is doing that Mark stocked him for, that's in a much easier to digest package, he's got a service program that's online with group coaching. If you want to get to where Mark did faster, I would encourage you to just buy that program from Greg. So that's a no-brainer. And I would just say, buy it. Just book the call and buy the thing. Mark, thank you so much for sharing. You're awesome. And it was very good. And can't wait for more people to listen to this. Thank you. This is an awesome time. RT3, if you guys want to become a member, they sponsor this episode. Just buy the $250 membership. It's a no-brainer. You'll get more networking and best practices and innovation from that community. Greg, any parting words for everyone on this episode who showed up?
Oh, yeah. So before we all let you in, we were talking with Mark, and I told Mark, you need to understand, you've got 5 trucks now. You can have 10 trucks in 2 years. And I think that the majority of the people listening in do not have the vision to understand how much you can grow this if you get the right resources. Now, in Mark's case, he's operationally really sound. He's got a good sales system in place. But for him to go from 5 trucks to 10 trucks in 2 years, he doesn't need to keep coming to my trade show things. He needs to talk to somebody like Ryan, who can really take his sales to the next level. But understand that is possible for all of you. It really is.
It's possible.
That's all I had, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah,
You did
very
a great
good.
job.
Yeah, all good. Possibilities. So very good. I think, Mark, I think that it's important for people, if they do want to reach out to you, that they can. Is that something you'd be okay with?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Do you mind sharing how they can reach out to you? What's the best way for them to contact you?
So email will be the best, and that's mark@wcroof.com.
Okay, that's great. We'll keep it at that. So we'll stick with the email. Thank you so much. And for everyone here, thank you. Share this. Greg and I will be putting on another episode here in the next 30 to 40 days. So be on the lookout, and listen, we're not marketing this a million times. We send out one invitation and that's it. So we're not going to blow up our email newsletters with this information. It's one time. We send out the recording one time and that's it. So be well on the lookout and mark your calendars, clear your calendars for the next one. So we're going to have some great guests. Thank you so much, Mark and Greg. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right, thanks for having me. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.